All right. What is going on, everybody? Those who have listened, those who have not, and those who think they know what they're listening to, you might have found the wrong podcast. My name is Justin, and this is 𝗬cie. And if you're new to this podcast, we're a couple friends who started a company because we thought we could help some people. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So, welcome to I Heard You When You Said. And if you don't like cuss words, crazy hair, or stories that go nowhere, you're probably in the wrong place. We're not medical doctors, nor do we play well on the internet. And although we are very smart, we can't solve all your life's problems. So know that up front. Know that up front.
From which one of us has the crazy hair? That's really just my question of the day. Your hair
That's
is looking very good. Your haircut looking fierce. You got that side fade going nice. They did a good job. They did a good job.
that's to be determined. Whose hair is whose hair is the craziest? I guess it depends on the day.
Oh, it's true because my hair isn't curly today. So, people are tame. So if you guys aren't watching this, you have no context. We are thoroughly more entertaining though, should you watch us. Because it's just you get to see all the nonverbal things that you can't see when you listen to it. But either way, we are thankful that you are here. So,
Absolutely.
Justin 𝗬cie, as we start every podcast, what is new and noteworthy in your life over there?
So the newest thing is that I got these cool shirts yesterday from 𝗬elle 𝗏, which is a great brand. If you've never heard of them, they should pop up on your Instagram all the time because they're very much good at their marketing. But it's a brand where they're trying to reestablish the values of hard work in our society. And so this is a really cool shirt because it says the few right here, and it's like looks like the world is melting. And the back says hard work in a soft world, and it has like hands that are like holding the melting globe. It's pretty cool design. So that's new to me. Got a couple of those t-shirts yesterday, and that's where we're at today. What about you?
Are you going to bring the people who are watching your crop top version of your shirt until I get mine?
The crop top version, yeah. So the crop
Yeah.
top version, if I were to have a bigger chest and cut it off, it would be something like this, right? I
Mm-hmm.
would I would tie it up on the side like this, and if I had longer hair, it would go great with a ponytail. It's one of those things. Maybe pigtails. That's probably what I'm thinking.
Oh, so here's the deal, everyone. I have not bought mine yet. Usually when Justin buys something, or I buy something that we both think is really cool, one of us buys something, then the other one buys it. And this time, I am showing such great discipline that I haven't bought it yet. But they're haunting me. They're really stalking me, going, 𝗬cie, you really want this. And so we were teasing that I would get the crop. And so until I get the crop, that is the best thing you guys get is Justin's version of the crop top. New and noteworthy over here. Goodness. In all things business and personal is this endeavor to be more organized. And you and I talked about this a little bit yesterday, is that this idea of me being disorganized actually costs me financially and it costs me emotionally. And because I've been conditioned by chaos for so long that I can thrive really well in chaos, but that means like there's not a lot of order. And you are so orderly that I am really striving to pick up some of your habits and patterns to make us more efficient and effective and productive. And so it was just really new and noteworthy of like seeing the mirror of, okay, slow down. You're going to put some practices in place and just take a different rhythm and cadence. So, we're only 2 days in. This was this profound recollection, the conversation we had yesterday morning. It was very profound.
It's very profound, but we're not exactly or you're not exactly well practiced at it just yet. Just
Yeah,
yet.
I'm 2 days in. And I will tell you guys who are listening, Justin was very gracious to me and didn't go, Oh, you think? You think you're a little disorganized? No, he was very, very gracious and very kind. The creative parts of me work well, and the more organized I can be, actually, the more creative and impactful I can be. So that's a new and noteworthy piece over here.
Gotcha.
That's what I've got.
Gotcha. Well, to piggyback on that conversation, we often talk a lot about things that either we are particularly skilled at, or like things that we find that are different in ourselves as opposed to maybe others in our space or those that we work with or whatever. And we also, as Stacey said, like to point out our weaknesses and our gaps because we just don't want to be bad at things, right? We want to try to be generally good at everything, which is not really possible, but we want to try to increase our competence, increase our skills along the way. And so that brought up this question, or really, I guess it's probably a question that you get asked quite a bit by your clients or maybe just strangers on the internet. I don't know if it's a particular question. It's more of a semblance or a idea of a question, but it's
Okay.
how do you cope with, let's rewind this. You're on a weight loss journey. You're on a fat loss journey. Okay. If you
Me?
haven't,
Yes, that's
yes,
true.
you are, right?
Yes.
For context, how do you cope with looking a certain way, trying to improve that look, trying to improve that feeling, and adhering to the processes along the way? How do you think about that, and how do you cope with the shortcomings that inevitably pop up?
I think if we're going to be as specific as possible, it's a mindset shift that I created a while back. And it wasn't even when we started working together. It was probably like within the last year. And we've been working together. Well, for those of you who don't know, Justin is also my coach. The list of jobs we have for each other is very long. We stopped counting. That probably a year ago, I was hearing people complain that they were fat. And I didn't really resonate with that. And it shocked people because at that time I was much heavier than I am now, a different physique, and not as able to do all the things performance wise as I can now. As working myself back to an athlete was that, gosh, I'm not fat. I have fat. And there is a huge mindset shift in the difference between having adipose tissue, if we're just going to call it what it is, and being fat. And so in this process, and we've had ups and downs, and especially over the last years, we were finding out root problems and supporting the systems of my body that for people who are new to this journey, that 40 pounds came off really easy. And then over the course of the year, 15 to 20 came back on. And I was adhering to everything we had done. So we were looking like, hey, there's something more systemic going on here. And it took that detachment from, hey, having fat isn't who I am. That's just a physiological trait. I'm still putting in the effort and the work. And when I was able to detach from those two things, that one doesn't have any value on the other, I can handle the ebbs and flows of restoring and repairing the systems of my body that I broke. I broke them. That was me. I was irresponsible. I was reckless for long periods of time. Didn't manage all the inbound stressors of my life. And I was handed more than the average bear, truthfully. If and that's for a different day, a different podcast. But it doesn't have most of the time, and I will say most of the time, and it's probably because Justin is also my friend. He gets to see more of the insecure sides of me than most of the world would get. That most of the time, like 98% of the time, it doesn't move me because we have a purpose and a plan to get where we're going. And I have no doubt that we'll get there, regardless of the obstacles that show up or how long it takes to get there.
Well, guess we can just wrap this one up at about the 10-minute mark. Thanks everybody for showing up today and listening. No,
That doesn't tell them how. That doesn't. That's just you said. Tell them how you tell them what, Stacey. Tell them what. So
tell them what. Tell them what. So the thing that I think is most important there is that, for one, Stacey has very good perspective on her situation. And I say good meaning broad, meaning understanding what led the environment that led up to her current state. She understands that. And so because of that, her perspective is one that is different than the large majority of people who are in her same shoes in terms of trying to lose X amount of weight, right? Or trying to lose body fat to get to a certain physique. And again, everybody's journey is a little bit different, but let's say that those all kind of fall into the same category. And so what we've boiled this down to, and Stacey and I get to talking about this behind the scenes, is there's a difference between, as she said, having fat versus being fat. And if you believe that you are fat, like that's a character trait that you have, that's the identity that you carry, and it's going to be pretty hard for you to maintain long-term success in a physique, like in a body that you are comfortable in and satisfied with and can celebrate, versus the idea of body fat and the idea of having excess body fat and being able to take steps to improve that situation, lose that body fat, become more healthy internally so that that health is reflected externally. And don't get me wrong, just because someone's lean doesn't mean they're healthy, and just because someone has excess body fat doesn't mean that they're unhealthy. And so again, these are very kind of like black and white dichotomous type things that we conclusions that we jump to in our society. But that's what we wanted to break down is, okay, well, if the identity of someone is their core belief, and that defines who they are and how they act to themselves, that's how they think about themselves, then ideology is how they think about other things, how they think about concepts, right? How they think about war, and how they think about health, and how they think about relationships, and how they think about environment, and how they, that type of thing. That's the ideas that you have about something. And so when you can separate those two things and understand what goes into what appropriate category, then you can start to make more calculated steps, and the emotions don't punch you in the face so hard every single time that you make a misstep and you go, well, I'm just fat, so that's just the way it is, right? I've always been fat. My family's always been fat. I was genetically predisposed to this. It's my, it's not my fault, XYZ. So from your perspective, Stacey, how does that show up for you, the ideology versus identity piece?
I remember when it shifted, right? And you have to remember, like, I came from this body positivity movement. Like, I was the person coaching other people, but was unhealthy, carried more weight physically, and really, and we've talked about this before, hid behind the body positivity movement. Like, I'm confident in this body. And because it was so good at coaching other people and teaching yoga and in this trauma informed space, I kind of got away with it for a long period of time because it was so good at what I do that people overlooked it. But the truth is that was a lie. I wasn't healthy. I was using what I was good at, like as a front, so to speak. So I didn't actually have to deal with all of the internal things. And at that point, I don't think it was a choice. I think it was a survival mechanism because what we were dealing with was so challenging that I could do something good in this shit show that we carried. But it was always in the back of my mind. And for those of you guys who are listening, like, this struggle, I'm going to say struggle previously because it's not a struggle now, and we'll get into it, is that my whole entire life, like, I don't ever remember a time where my weight or having excess weight wasn't a part of the conversation. And I took drastic measures to do that, whether it was like prescription drugs or fad diets or overtraining and all of that. And so even at my leanest, like walking into a plastic surgeon's office, it was like, hey, could you take this skin apron of 15 pounds and like tuck this and nip that and make it flat, that I still didn't, walking out of that plastic surgeon's office, see myself as lean. In my mind, my belief was I was still fat, even 15 grams later, and then chose actions that supported that belief. So when you talk about, hey, just because you're lean, it doesn't mean that somebody's lean and doesn't actually think that they're fat. Their belief is still that they are fat, not that they have fat. And that's a great delineating factor. Can you look at yourself in the mirror and be content with this is just anatomy. This is just anatomy. And when you can separate it, then you can actually take steps to course correct how you believe. That your ideology then becomes a more supportive identity, and then you can take the actions to actually create the outcome that you want. But you're not going to ever get the outcome what you want without an identity shift.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the outcome in anything, right? Like the amount of money that you want to make, the type of people you want to attract, the things you want to be able to do with your body, like the skills or the, you know, the maybe adaptations that you want to see, bigger, faster, stronger. And so to me, it's basically kind of boils down to like, do you have a winner's mentality or a loser's mentality? That's at the core of it. It's like, okay, if you're just gonna fat shame yourself basically back into the same body that you had before, even when you take whatever steps that you thought were necessary, like in your case, at one point in time, it was surgery and drugs and whatever to get to that point. But just like winning the lottery, you didn't work to get that. And so you don't understand what it takes to keep that. And so because of that, you find yourself in a very odd situation in which you don't have the underlying structures to support the results that you're seeing in the mirror. And because you don't know what you see, like what you see is unfamiliar, all your brain knows is, but I'm still that fat kid, right? And so guess what? Over time, it's going to shift back that way, despite your best efforts, because you never dug to the root of the issue and said, am I going to have a winner's mentality about this? Or am I going to continue to talk shit to myself and let myself slip further and further away from this thing that I just traded so much resources for, right? Because you still got to trade resources. Time and energy are still resources. You can speed it up by giving money, but it's not gonna keep it there.
Oh, and I will tell you, since we're talking about this, like, would you like to even know the guilt I carried? That for the longest time, especially as the weight went back on, that I was like, I wasted 15 grand. I wasted 15 grand. And even there was a time like in our coaching, I remember when we started, you're like, what's your goal weight? I'm like, I don't actually have one. I actually don't give a shit. I don't care. Here's how I want my body to perform, and here's how I want to feel. And you picked a number that I thought was freaking crack. And if we ever see that number, I will be so thrilled to see that number, because I believe that you think it's possible, and I can't wait for you to be right. And I hope that I get to have the belief that you have in that number, because my husband would be a really happy guy. He's not unhappy right now, but we pull that shit off, my husband might not actually ever leave the house. See, another reason to retire him when we started a business. We didn't even know the good things we were doing.
So many puzzle pieces coming together.
right now, that I felt guilty. And there was like, because I walked into that plastic surgeon's office at like 185. And after losing like what, 70 pounds and 3 babies and nursing and all this. And I didn't have any more confidence in that body as when I walked in. And so you're 100% right. I chose the actions to support my belief system because my identity didn't have it. And I actually covered it up for a really long time. And it's been 11 years. And even in the last couple of weeks, you and I are still uncovering the ways that I hide. And being like, no, it's okay. We're going to be seen. You've got this. So that identity piece is a really big thing. You can change that. You can change your outward appearance, but until you really change it, it's challenging, and culture doesn't make it easier. Like, how many times have you seen like nothing tastes as good as skinny feels? And I don't know if that impacts men, but like as a female, that was like freaking everywhere. And it was perpetuated even in a gym community of, hey, oh no, skinny feels better. And I'm like, bullshit. It doesn't. So on the other side of the perspective, because this has been like mostly a 𝗬cie dominated conversation, which I think the difference is most women talk more freely about this. I'd love to know your perspective on how this shows up, like for you personally.
So I've posted some transformation pictures in the past and going to continue to do a better job at that, now currently. Just hasn't been on the forefront since I've had a family, right? Wanted to try to, show them off more than me. But I've never been, for the people who don't know, if you go follow me on Instagram or have seen pictures of me, whatever, is I've never been significantly overweight, right? Like when I was in high school, at my heaviest, I was probably 220 pounds ish, 225 maybe. Not a like strong, broad 225. And I stand about 6 foot tall. So ideally, right, somewhere between 180 and 190 at from this is what to me is the range in which is healthy, able, and somewhere where I like to float. And so, again, I was just a chubby kid in high school, got made fun of some for it by my close friends, right? I wasn't the chubbiest friend that I had by any means, but, it was just one of those things where I wasn't super into like fitness. And then at the end of the day, how it showed up for me or how it shows up for me is although I've lost that weight that I had in high school and I've never really gotten past 200 pounds again, and for the most part, that I still have moments where I've been leaner than I currently am, right? And I've also been more like had more fat than I currently have, right? I've gone both ways. And so the thing that has kept me from getting fixed in this I am fat versus I have fat, that type of thing. I don't think I've ever considered myself fat necessarily. I've always looked at it as, okay, well, this is fixable. I can figure this out, right? Nothing is set in stone. I've been here and I've been here. So as long as I can float somewhere in the middle, I can go either way at any point in my choosing, right? And so what I mean by that is if I wanted to try to gain lean mass and try to get heavier by scale terms and like altogether like bigger in terms of muscle tissue, I could do that from where I sit right now. I could also easily lose, I say easily, within a short amount of time, lose 5-10 pounds and become leaner. And I've seen myself both ways, and I know the benefits of both things, and I also know the detriments of both things. And so for me, I now operate out of a place of what am I able to do and still maintain with very minimal oversight, right? Like I still will track my food and I still will pay attention to what I eat. It's not that I'll just throw caution to the wind. It's that, hey, if it costs me X amount of attention, because I'm trying to grow other things right now too, right? Grow a business, grow a family. If it costs me X amount of attention to be able to get to that lean and stay there, well, I'm not sure that that's what I want to do, right? Because really it's just for my own vanity's sake at that point anyway, which is not a bad thing to do if you have if I wanted to go to the beach or I was going to take a week vacation or something like that. Okay, cool. I'll do that. I'll live there short term. I'll come back. I'll gain 5 pounds and I'll be somewhere in the middle again. Right. That type of thing. I can have that elasticity of thought to go back and forth. But even nowadays, when I take my shirt off, I know that I've been leaner. So there's always that constant, that initial piece that says like, oh, that's not, like you've been able to see more abs than that before, or there was a line there that's not there anymore, or there's still things that everybody picks themselves apart, even the people who are the leanest. And I would almost say especially people who are the leanest, because they know what their potential quote unquote looks like. And this is where you get into that conversation of, well, who feels the worst about their body, and that like it's a competition. People who have always been overweight their entire life and never had a long-term success in terms of keeping that weight off, or people who have never really been all that overweight and they know what this really lean, unhealthily lean, and probably not the best place to sit body looks like and feels like. And so which of those people I would argue that both of those people fall into a very similar category. They're dissatisfied with what they see and they desire to make a change, but they still have a problem seeing themselves somewhere different.
100%. Like, I look back at those pictures when I thought at my leanest physique I was still fat. And the challenge is that everyone's like, oh my gosh, you look so amazing. You look so amazing. You look so amazing. Great. Thank you. I don't see myself like that. And even where we are in this fat loss journey, like, it's really funny because my weight actually doesn't represent what I look like. And so when people find out how much I really weigh, they're like, no way. And I'm like, okay, I know you mean that in the nicest way possible. And I'm not sensitive about that. But like, there's no way you actually, unless you must have so much muscle. Yeah, that's absolutely true. But it's dismantling this idea behind it of why does it matter? Like, and it's something that I talk to my clients all the time who are obsessed with their weight on the scale. I'm like, it's gravity. It's gravity. Okay, delightful. It's gravity. So when you see this now, I mean, especially because this is our industry, and it's actually fun to get to have this conversation freely now because I've gotten a lot of shit over my physique in this industry of being in process. It's also the thing that makes me more approachable and safe, especially to females and even my male clients, because they're like, you're actually not just talking about it, but we're watching you do it. Like, you're doing the work, you have the story, like these are the things you're doing. And so they get to watch it from a perspective of not only am I in it and it doesn't move me, but that I only have this pocket of time to tell the story. When we have the physique that we want for me, this will just be something in the history that somebody can go back and watch and be like, there's no way. There's going to be a time in the future that nobody will know that this story existed unless we do like a side by side. It'll be so far removed that it won't have the power that this moment currently has. But like, I've been told that I haven't seen enough progress, or I shouldn't look like that. And this is the whole thing of why Justin and I coach the way that we do. Because if I didn't have him, if we weren't looking at supporting the functions of my body, I would still be frustrated. I would still be discouraged. I would still be looking for answers that this industry didn't have, while they were pretty much ridiculing me for not working hard enough or not being disciplined enough and all of that, which none of that was true because we were dealing with a system thing. So when we look at like this male female bias of how culture or the world looks at it, how do we bring this more palatable in the context of identity versus ideology, and give some people like something tangible to be like, hey, we're going to fucking flip this script right now. And it might be something that you've never heard before.
Sure. So I think that people don't expect to hear body image stories from people who have never been significantly overweight, first of all. So I think they expect to hear those things from you. They don't expect to hear those things from me, right? Like you said, in the future, when when people don't associate you with your current physique, it's going to be, oh, that was just a thing that she did do, but it's not the thing that she, now for whatever reason, I doubt this, but you might lose some initial authority with people. It's like, oh, she's not a practicing overweight person. Right? Like, you see what I'm saying? It's like, it's weird to think about. And I think there's even a bias that goes from men to women in terms of like, oh, guys have it easier because they can lose weight quicker. And while on the whole that might be true because we're not childbearing and we have more testosterone naturally, and there's certain biological advantages that we have in terms of weight management, if that's where you want to put that category. But there's also something to be said about, let's level the playing field in terms of a different example. Let's say that it was money. Okay. If you think that you are in debt, or if you know that you are in debt, you can see the number on the screen or whatever it is. Well, then most of the time people don't associate that as a character trait. They go, oh, okay, well, I'm in debt. I owe more money than I currently have. So how do I find myself, or how do I do something to get myself out of this debt? How do I start to save money or make these payments or budget or whatever it is? So that's the ideology of having not enough money and earning more money. But if you were to say, I'm poor, you're probably never going to be out of debt, at least not permanently. You may have some short-lived moments of your life where the money's coming in and the payments are low or whatever it is, but as soon as the economy swings back the other way, or you have some shift in your life or whatever, all of a sudden you're back to being poor again. And that being poor is, again, it's just like being fat. It's this loser mentality that says this situation does not have a solution and I will always be here in some way, shape, or form. And while you have had things that you've experienced in your life so far that made it harder for you to manage your weight, right? Like that's true. There's no doubt about that. Anybody looked back at your raising kids history and all this other kind of stuff, and there's no disputing that fact. The solutions still remain for you to go and take the opportunity to pursue, right? There's still opportunity to pursue solutions. The way that you pursue that may be different, which is, like Stacey said, the whole reason we started coaching people from a thought pattern and a nervous system, and how does that tie in with your metabolic, like the effect of your metabolism. That's why we started our own coaching company, is because we understand that the line is not linear. I think every coach who coaches people on weight loss understands that the line is not linear. The clients don't necessarily understand that. So we take a backdoor, kind of a back road approach to how do we get you to shift your perspective of how you think about being fat versus having fat, for example. And then we'll go in there and we'll support the body in a way that makes this process easier in the long run, right? It's not going to get you there in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, but it's going to get you there and keep you there long term when you understand what am I lacking, right? From a thought pattern, central nervous system, metabolic resistance standpoint. And from there, we can start to work you forward and back you out of the environment that you find yourself in and into an environment that's more favorable for the body and the mind that you want. So that's why we are having this conversation, because we find a lot of people have this mentality that the world is conspiring against them to stay exactly where they are. And we deal a lot with weight management, obviously, and health conditions, but it could also be the same for money. It could also be the same for job. It could also be the same for relationships. So, Stacey, why don't you go into the Germans a little bit? How about we talk about the Germans?
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about the Germans, and I'm gonna tell a quick story before we get to the Germans. I was on a client call last week who Jess and I have me in a ketogenic state right now. And a different day, we'll talk a difference between a keto diet and a ketogenic state as we are supporting the systems of my body. And we could science the shit out of this, but we will not bore you. You don't need to know all the science of why this is working, just that it does work. And so most days I'm under 30 carbs a day because we are forcing my body to use a different fuel system to repair some stuff. I was talking to a client and he's like, "How are you doing? Like, I thought about you as I ate a bagel." First of all, I love that you think of me while you're eating a bagel. I love that. Put some schmear on that. And he's like, "Is this hard for you?" And I said, "No, it's not hard for me." He's like, "I don't understand. How is this not hard for you?" Well, because we're repairing something I broke. Like, we're actually solving a problem right now. And so I have no fear of missing out. There's nothing that I want that I don't have, because the thing that satisfies is repairing a system. And so the target is different. And so this is something that I shared with Justin, I think yesterday. You didn't even know that I was doing it. That about 3 weeks ago, I decided that I was going to change the way that I talk to myself in regards to fat loss. And we're going to get to the Germans. But I started really to say to myself that I'm a person who loses fat with ease, because that hadn't been the case my entire journey prior. Even the first 40 pounds, I worked my freaking ass off for those 40 pounds. That was a grind on purpose, really hard because I wanted it so bad. And as we move into this transition of life, is that Justin knows and I know that me working hard is not the problem. Me working hard is the problem. It's so changing my mindset of I'm going to take this journey with ease, made every piece of what we do right now not hard. It doesn't mean it's not challenging. Like today with 28 kilos and goblet squats, I'm like, God, I wish there was a 32. Like it's a good day to go to the gym and wish there was a heavier kettlebell and they don't have one. And good thing my friend owns the gym. Can I be like, could you order me some 32s, please? Um, Jason and Kat don't listen, but it's fine. They'll get it. Which leads into this piece of we were on a client call the other day with a dual client of Justin and I, and she had this thing of, I'm going to Germany this summer and I don't want to be fat. Can I not be fat when I go to Germany this summer? And I'm like looking at my watch going, when are you going to Germany? July. In my heart, I'm like, oh shit. Like we're only like 4 weeks into coaching. Like we are doing a ton of work on the backside of trauma and behavior and mindset and regulating nervous system. I'm like, ain't no way we're getting here by July. We might just be starting this when it comes to July. And what they had said, and this is no offense to Germans, this is her perspective, right? Of just people being direct, of her being afraid that they would comment directly on her weight. Like just people who are direct commenting on their weight. And I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but that does happen to me a lot, especially as a female who is mid-size in this industry. There's a lot of comments on my body. So now, and I'm sure there always will be, that's fine. I can take that. But I asked her one question. Why are you afraid of what the Germans will say when you look in the mirror and you say that to yourself every single day? You look in the mirror and tell yourself that you're fat. And you create this whole storyline of what that fat means. And we're willing to protect ourselves and maybe want this drastic thing to go on a vacation where people will never see or not see again, might comment on you look different or your face looks different and all of that. But daily you're looking in the mirror and being so unkind to yourself. So it was, we now just say the Germans are coming when no offense to Germans. Maiden name was Klein. I'm not mad at you, Germans. That there's no moral value here. So Justin, like, would you like lean in to lean having no moral value?
So if you're going to be able to hold on to this ideology of fat loss and understand that it is a concept to be wrestled with, not necessarily a character trait, then you have to put it on the table in front of you and understand a couple things. Number one, being lean has trade-offs. It will cost you. First of all, what we're trying to get you to understand is it's going to cost you your current identity. And that's a lot. That's a lot for some people to give up. And a lot of people actually choose not to pursue coaching because of that. They understand I am not ready to lay down that identity yet. I still think of myself that way. And it's a sad state of affairs because I think that we do a really good job of getting people to shift that slowly over time. Even while you're getting results, shifting that idea that you are not what you were mentally and physically and like what you believe about yourself so that you can sustain this past when you're done coaching with us, right? But at the end of the day, lean costs you something. It's going to cost you your current identity. It's also going to cost you some things in your life in terms of maybe activities that you used to do, people you used to hang out with, if it comes to that. The way that you look at, nostalgic foods. For example, cinnamon rolls. I grew up having cinnamon rolls for Sunday breakfast every Sunday of my life as long as I can remember when I was living with my parents. And to this day, it is still a favorite dessert of mine. but it is something that I've gotten out of the habit of considering a normal breakfast, an acceptable breakfast, right? It's a every once in a while on special occasions type of thing. So it costs you some of your favorites that you hold space for sometimes, right? And it's going to cost you the ability to just go and do and eat whatever you want with whoever you want while you're getting that result. Later on, you may be able to smooth those things out, but right now that's not appropriate. So it does cost you something. The reason I say that is because if you see it as almost like a transaction in terms of like, I'm doing this to get that, and you're not going to see an immediate payoff. For most people, it's not going to be an immediate payoff. You have to continue to figure out how that looks for you until you do continue to see your body shift and see your health shift and symptoms and the way that you think and things like that. But it has no moral value. Just because you're leaner doesn't mean you're a good person. And just because you're fat doesn't mean you're a bad person. It only represents the environment that you found yourself in physically and mentally. To me, it's a reflection of that, right? Like Stelly, nobody would say that Stelly's not a confident individual. Nobody who's met Stelly, has talked to Stelly, and knows her for more than 10 minutes is going to say that she is a meek and quiet and not confident and not engaging individual. So if we're equating body composition and having abs to being confident, Stelly doesn't fit in that category. So that's where I'm getting at, is there's no moral value attached to your weight unless you allow it to, unless you allow your weight to dictate your goodness in the world. And it also can go too far the other way. You can be like, well, I'm so good, it doesn't matter how I look. I promise you it matters how you look. If you want to make money and you want to earn respect and you want to have far-reaching impact and success, I promise you it matters how you look. And I'm not saying that from a vain standpoint. I'm telling you, people respect people who have the discipline to control their weight, no matter what. No matter what. You may have family conditions. You may have to go down some more specific routes than me, right? I may be able to go on pick up 2 days of running every week and eat the same stuff and be able to lose some weight. You may have to do some different things to be able to lose that initial weight and stay there. But the point of the matter is, everybody cares about it. Nobody cares about you more than you, but everybody knows that discipline that it takes to get and stay into a certain physique is something that is, as a culture, looked on with admiration. So if you think that your weight says that you're a bad person, it doesn't say that you're a bad person. It also doesn't say that you're a good person. It is morally neutral. It is just a signal of what you've allowed to happen in your life to some degree. So would that is that accurate enough?
100%. And I'll even add to this, and you guys will get to watch this because you're kind of at the beginning of our public relationship, so to speak, is that you're coming into this part of the story. But I have had to work twice as hard in this industry to prove what I know and how good I am at what I do because of my physique. Now we're going to get to watch this change. It'll be a great social experiment, right? Because I have to come in heavy with what I know and my experience and the longevity of the results that I've gotten people, because my physique doesn't match what it should, completely based on the truth that you just said, right? So I've had to work harder to prove my value and worth because of my weight in this industry for the last 9 years. So it'll be kind of like a fun experiment to watch as my physique changes, to see what changes and how people engage with me. And again, you guys can hear that I don't really have I don't have an attachment to that. It's more with my background of behavior. I'm so fascinated how people interact. One of the things, like, as we close, and we've touched on it a little bit, like the shift from identity to ideology. What are the things that if somebody wanted to take action and do it, like they heard this and we get that this is a hard conversation and we're having it because I've never heard it talked about this way. And so if we're casual about it, no, it's because we've done the work and these are private conversations that we've brought public or conversations that we've had with our clients. So I don't want to dismiss that this is an easy conversation, but we want to be able to give you something that you can take action with and move more from ideology into creating this as your identity, that fat is no longer your identity. What would you give people to do?
So number one is you have to actually be open to the possibility that a different physique is on the table. So in short, that's you have to believe that it's actually possible for you, and you have to discontinue that poor me mentality of, well, it must be nice to be lean, right? If you're a must be nice person, I'm sorry, this until you start to shift your language just a little bit and open your mind up to the possibility that what would it look like? What would it feel like? Kind of what would I do if I were the person who weighed 100 pounds less than I do now, right? I say that's you're 100 pounds overweight. And that's step number one. It's just starting the mental conversation with yourself. Just being aware. Well, it's not really being aware that you're overweight. You're probably well aware that you're overweight. It's being aware that you talk shit to yourself about your weight and calling it out, bringing it to the light in front of yourself and saying, this is no longer acceptable. This is not how I talk to myself. I wouldn't allow someone on the street to talk to me like that. Then why am I allowing myself? So you first have to be open to the possibility that it's possible. Second thing is, okay, let's start to think. What would this look like if it were easy? What would this look like if, what does a healthy person do in general? Like, what does that person do? Do they eat salads? Do they go drink a gallon of water? Do they go on a walk every day? Do they lift weights every day? Do they get enough sleep? All of those things in some way, shape, or form, right? And then it comes down to, well, should I be a vegan? Should I be a carnivore? Should I count my macros? And I think this is what actually is the one of the roots, not the root of the problem, but one of the symptoms of I can never get out of this trap, is because there's so many options. People get decision fatigue or paralysis by analysis, and they say, well, if I don't know what the best is, then I'm just not even going to go. Fuck the best. It doesn't matter what the best is. It only matters what you are. It matters what you do. So the next thing that you can do, once you understand that, yes, it is possible, yes, I'm open to the possibility, what's the first thing that I could do that just seems like the low-hanging fruit in this situation? If it's drinking a bottle of water, because I normally don't drink a bottle of water, cool, let's start there. And let's keep up with that. Let's pay attention to that, right? Take out a piece of paper, write down how many days that you drank at least one bottle of water. If you drink 0, maybe you drink 2, let's try to drink 4, that type of thing. You got to start something very, very, very slowly if you're this person who's very deeply set in, what's polishing off a whole sleeve of Oreo cookies because I'm already fat anyway. If you're that individual, if that's who I'm speaking to right now, you need to understand that even if you continue to do that behavior, as long as you're starting a different behavior that is bringing you closer to the person that you want to be, that you desire to be, there's room for you to grow. I'm not saying you have to stop every negative behavior and start every positive behavior. It's really not possible. You can't do that. You can't make a 180 shift, not permanently anyway. Everybody can act right for 30, 60, 90 days, but you won't be able to override your comfort, your need for comfort eventually. And so now it's, okay, well, how would I actually like trick myself into doing this? Well, okay, let's color the water differently. Let's put something in there that's going to make it taste a little bit better, that doesn't, add a ton of calories and defeat my purpose, right? Let's put in there and like just trick myself. Oh, this is just juice. This isn't water, right? Let's play around with it. So that's what I would say is be a little bit more open to the possibility and play around with the habits of behavior change and kind of make it not so serious. Now, if you have an underlying health condition, this is going to be different. If you need things to be done sooner rather than later, that's obviously something you need to be consulted about, right, with a medical professional or whatever. But if you're the person who just has a bunch of weight to lose or any weight to lose, and you've never been able to really get it to stick, you've never been able to really be that person, that girl or that guy, it's because you haven't shifted out of that identity. And so let's just start to play around with it. Let's just start to say, like, well, what would this even look like? Let me just try this today, and then I'll come back tomorrow and I'll try it again. Because what happens is you start to shift the way that you see the process of change. And as cliche as it is, when you change what you see changes. And so that idea just means, if you think about it a little bit differently, then you will start to see the results that you desire. So how do we think about it differently? We take one little step forward. We take two little steps forward. And you may still be dragging a lot of weight on the back end, right? You still may be doing unhelpful things. But as long as you're making that effort and moving forward, you slowly become what I define as the health nut. Because in my small town where I grew up, if you didn't eat like everybody else ate, or if you didn't like engage in those activities, you were the health nut. And I'm starting to understand the people who are actually pioneers in that regard in a small town, who we all saw as health nuts because they rode their bike 10, 20 miles a day, right? Like, whoa, that's drastic when in a town of less than 3,000 people. So that's where I would have people start, is what's one little thing. Don't put too much weight on it, for no pun intended. Don't put too much weight on it. Be playful, be open to the possibility, and start there.
I love that. And so if you made it this far, one, thank you. Two, it would be ridiculous of us not to give you a space or a place for you to start this journey. And so we have a free school community where you can come have community, hear more from Justin and I, and really start this process. If you are just like, hey, this is new to me, I've never heard this talked about before, and I'm open to the possibility of having this conversation in a community that thinks like this, it's why we created it. We know that it's different. It's different on purpose. And we know that it's a little bit ahead of our time. We know that we're a little bit ahead of the rest of the industry, but it's needed to have these conversations differently so that you can have less friction in becoming who you want to be. Because this really comes down to, who do you want to be and how do we help you get there? And this was the way that we could give back, to have more, to give more access to us. While you're wondering, like, do I need more support? I don't even, you're still, it must be nice person. And we're not judging you if you're the, it must be nice person. Come with your pack of Oreos, man. Or this sleeve of Thin Mints that are in the freezer that are just so damn good that my kids keep stealing. I'm not having them right now. But that's how you get access. So Justin, how do they get access to school, and how do they get access to us?
So if you want access to the free community that we have, it's on a platform called 𝗬់, but all you have to do is reach out to me or Stacy on Instagram. I'm at Farmer to Fitter. That's T-O, Farmer T-O Fitter. And Stacy is at Stacy J. Hansen. It's also in the show notes of every episode if you need to look at that, like how to spell all that. And you can reach out to us on Instagram, and we will send you the link personally to that school group, and be able to have a conversation with you. At some point in the near future, it will also be in the link in bio part of Instagram as well for us, so that you can join it there. So the best way right now, as of when this podcast gets released, is going to be to contact us personally through DMs on Instagram, and we will send that to you. And then we'll get you in there and help you become a part of the conversation as much as you wish to be. So again, we appreciate you. We love everyone who listens, watches, and engages every week. And if there's something that you want to see talked about, which I think that we should start doing a little bit of like a Q&A, like every so many episodes, do a little bit of like a Q&A, just like either random things that about us as friends, or like health related questions, or whatever, right? I mean, like whatever it is, to do some more listener fed questions, listener fed content, so that, give the people what they want, type of thing. What do you think about that?
I love that. I also love when we do that, because then we get to learn so much more about each other. Justin didn't know that I knew how to tap dance until yesterday, and you should have seen his face when he found out.
Hey, unknown skills.
So many unknown skills. Most of them you get to know about. So until next week, thanks for having this cool conversation with me, friend.
Yeah, always a good time. We'll see y'all next time.